Hey everyone, welcome to Your First Digital Product, a show that helps maxed out service providers create their first digital product so they can gain an additional income stream, grow their impact without increasing one-on-one work, and experience more time freedom. On the show, I talk to business owners who have launched digital products and dig deep into how you can create, launch, and market your first digital product. I'm your host, Renee Morozowicz. Let's go. Hey everybody, today I'm here with Maggie Gentry, and Maggie is a thought partner for high-conscious entrepreneurs, acting as a confidant and co-conspirator, gently guiding them towards their growth edges, pointing them back to their truth, and redefining how they do business on their own terms. Hey Maggie, how are you?
Hey, I'm well. Grateful to be here.
Yay, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited. I know we have talked some times in the past, and why don't you tell me just a little bit more about you?
Yeah. On the work front, my background is in marketing. So I started my business almost 8 years ago, and it has seen, a few different iterations since
Mhm.
then. But largely what I focus on now is really supporting folks who are in the wellness space, a lot who are service-based entrepreneurs who have been in that one-on-one model, coaches or consultants or therapists even. So are
Mhm.
doing that kind of trading time for money type of business model, and then exploring how to allow themselves to I'm hesitating because it's like scale is like the
Mhm.
word that we want to use, but it's not quite it. It's really working with them to decide how can we repurpose their expertise in a way where they don't necessarily have to do that time for money exchange. And so
Mhm.
coming up with, some sort of digital product or
Mhm.
offering that allows them to share their expertise in a new, fresh way. So a course or a group offering or something like that. So that's a lot of what I
Mhm.
do in my work world.
Nice. When you find that people are they coming to you saying like, "Hey, I want to stop trading time for money," or are they coming to you just with kind of like a general dissatisfaction, or is everything fine and they're just looking to optimize? Like, what kind of problems are they having, I guess, when you
Mhm.
see them initially?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it runs the gamut. I don't know that anyone, I mean, I would say that that's like my words as far as
Mhm.
like how clients are finding me, but I think that that's what I've been able to perceive as like the through line
Mhm.
is that I do think that folks are coming and they're burnt out and tired, but they
Mhm.
might not be able to expressly articulate why.
Mhm.
And so they are coming to me often with questions of like, something's not quite right.
Mhm.
I don't really know what that might be. Sometimes they'll have an inkling of what they feel like it might look like. So it really depends. It runs that gamut, but I feel like, and I still do work with some folks who are just starting out too.
Mm.
And so then it's really supporting them in conceptualizing from the ground up, like what can this business look like,
Right.
which is for fun.
Yes, yeah, I can imagine, like, that is very exciting. Like, "Ooh, let's
Mhm.
build systems and processes and, boundaries
Oh,
and
yeah.
all that kinda good stuff from the beginning," instead of, like, I'm sure, as a lot of people work where you put that in your contract only after you've had that problem, and so on.
Yes.
Like, "Oh, I need that in my contract." Yeah.
Yeah, it's like learning or like setting the boundaries from hindsight.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Awesome. Okay, well, I know that was a little bit of a sidebar there. I was just curious.
Mm.
So you have a digital product up now, but it's not your first product. So do you want to tell us about the first product that you created and what it was and who it served and its lifespan, I guess?
For sure, yeah. So the very first digital product I created was a course actually, and it
Mm.
was called Own Your Why. And so the idea behind it was to serve the same, high conscious entrepreneurs, the folks that I continue to serve now, but folks that were really wanting to delve into clarifying their brand messaging and really their purpose, and then building a marketing strategy around that. So it was a hybrid course, meaning there were live components, but there were also some modules and worksheets and things for them to do on their own. And there was a community component. We had a Slack channel for folks to connect and collaborate with one another. And I ran it one and and it was fine. But I think what's been interesting is I realized I have a hard time showing up for like this same thing all the time.
Okay.
I have a hard time working within a rigid schedule. And so
Mhm.
for me showing up for like 8 weeks at noon on Tuesdays or whatever the date and time was, I found that really challenging because there were some weeks where it's just like, I don't want to show up.
Right.
And it almost felt a little disingenuous where it was like, I don't feel like I have the capacity to hold space and be here for these folks. And yet there's this obligation for me to do so. And so I had a real reckoning with that. I mean, this was back in 2017,
Okay.
2018. I felt a lot of feelings of failure and a lot of self doubt and a lot of inner critic
Mhm.
things were coming up. Like, well, everyone else can hack it. Why can't I? Or like, this
Mhm.
is the thing that everyone's saying that this is the way we
Mhm.
should be doing it.
Yes.
Why
Right.
can't I? I did it once and I learned a lot from it, but also it was just like, it wasn't for me.
Mhm.
And so actually the solo business retreat planning guide that I have up now is a fairly new offering that I just created earlier this year. And I think what I have discovered over the years is, another value of mine is really wanting to create resources that can help as many people as possible. So accessibility and having some, affordable offerings is really
Okay.
important. I think that that's a conundrum that I feel a lot of peers, myself, and even clients face of, okay, well, we kind of have to charge a certain amount in order to support ourselves.
Mhm.
And also knowing that even sometimes that price point can be really prohibitive for
Yes.
others to be able to partake. So anyway, I was trying to really sit with how can I create something that meets that need or meets that value of mine of being at least affordable and accessible from a financial standpoint. And so that's when I had this idea of, well, what if I could write a blog post or create a piece? For me, it's a blog post. So, how can
Mhm.
I create this piece of content and then create a small email sequence that leads into this paid offering that could be a
Mhm.
low cost offering? And see if just putting that out into the world can kind of trickle a few sales in. And it's not
Mhm.
even really for me about getting a massive quantity of sales. It's
Mhm.
more just, oh, I've put some energy into this and I would love to have a little bit of an energetic exchange.
Mhm.
So that was really the impetus behind that guide that's currently there. I know I just shared a lot, so I'll pause.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, I have questions. I want to go back to the first product, but I do want to
Yeah.
come back because I have questions about the current one too. So for
Yeah.
the first product, like, did it have to be a hybrid? Like, did you consider just taking yourself out of the mix, but still offering the things that you had already recorded? Or was it just not enough? Like, why did you kind of stop it completely instead of morphing it, I guess, into something that worked a little bit better for you?
Mhm. Yeah, great question. So I do know that for me, I also show up better live than
Mhm.
doing like I have a serious block around anything that's video recorded.
Mhm.
I'm okay doing audio recording, which also is funny where it's like,
Mhm.
oh, I could record these modules as like audio instead of video. But I think I was getting caught up, and especially in that time, I was running a really lean business because I had just started out. So there wasn't a whole lot of extra funding.
Mhm.
And, I didn't feel like putting on the audio video like
Mhm.
editor hat. I didn't feel like learning that skill set, and I didn't have the funds to pay someone to do that for me. So that felt like a big constraint that for whatever reason I just didn't have, and it felt like it was ready to be released. It didn't
Mhm.
feel like I wanted to double down on
Mhm.
that. And so what I did instead is I transitioned it to being a day-long intensive. So I had people that would come in and we would go through that entire curriculum in a day. And so
Oh,
I hosted it at my house and
wow.
I would, and I would cook, so it was like this
Mhm.
whole kind of beautiful experience that I
Mhm.
attempted to curate. And I ran quite a few of those and it was really fun for while it lasted. But yeah, anyway, so
That's nice. I like that. So that sounds like a nightmare to me. Like having people come over to my house for the entire day.
Yeah.
And that, but I love that that works for you. And I love that you tried a couple things to see and also realize that about yourself. I think a lot of times we do that where, yeah, we should be doing X. And so
Hmm.
we try to do X and either we can't do it because we can't quite get there. So the whole like launch a course, so many people out there have courses unfinished, they're started, but they just can't quite get there. Or they do it and they're like, you know what? I didn't actually want to do this. I don't actually
Yeah.
like this. I don't like video. I don't like, whatever it is specifically. And you don't have to do it that way. Like that's kind of, I
Yeah.
feel like I should change the name of this podcast to something like, you don't have to do it that way. You can do it a different way. And finding that way that works for you, I think is so much more satisfying for you and then for the people who are consuming your content and following you, because then it really resonates because you show up in a different way and they can get even more of you mentioned energy exchange, like they get even more of that energy from you. So yeah, whatever that medium is, whatever that looks like, I think can be, much, much better.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
10,000%. Yeah. That's something that I think about a lot is, how we're working or the channel
Mhm,
or, the medium that we
mhm.
choose, just because people say like, whoever that person
Yeah,
is, like, if it's
they,
like, okay,
yeah,
who
they.
are they? Right. So if it's like, if blogging is the thing that they're all about, but writing is really hard for you, then perhaps it's like, well, what about podcasting? Like and it
Mhm,
seems like there's always, another workaround. So I am
mhm.
totally on board that train of like, what is the way that works best for you? Follow
Yes.
that.
Yes. Yes. It'll be easier for you to create. It'll be easier for you
Yes.
to sell. I mean, and not that really like we're all about sales, like you mentioned, wanting to just share more of yourself and more of the things that make you tick with other people, I think,
Hmm.
is really important. So, yeah, I don't know. Just kind of trying to think of who they are the people who have sold, 8 billion copies of whatever at
Sure.
$10,000 a piece, and we're trying to, make up a ton of money. I don't want to make a ton of money. I like to make some money, to keep the lights on and do some things,
Sure.
travel, not have to work all the time. But yeah, I don't need to make $1 billion.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I mean, maybe we're getting off on a tangent here,
Yeah,
so we
that's
can always
okay.
come back. But having supported clients in building their own programs and courses,
Mhm.
it's like a lot of times when they're trying to retrofit what worked for them. So maybe they had this gangbuster sales period or launch period, and they're like, oh, I can teach this to whomever. And it's like, well, but we have to also consider that there were a number of factors, a few, if not many, of which were outside of their control. Like sometimes
Mhm.
there is luck or
Mhm.
privilege, like let's
Yeah.
name that.
Mhm.
Um,
Timing, things that are, the
yes.
algorithms, sort of like Facebook, was really popular, whatever it is
Yes.
that,
Like
yeah,
the
they were just like,
timing.
yes, the
Mhm.
timing. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I think it's like, then folks, I think that's where a lot of this advice is coming from. It's like, oh, you have to do this because that worked for them. But we're
Mhm.
forgetting all of the different factors
Right.
that contribute to making that thing the thing that worked for
Mhm.
them. So I think
Exactly.
that's what's always the curious part about this is like, how can we find what's our thing? Like we're talking
Right.
about, where's your energy naturally being called?
Yeah, and I think even with like specific life circumstances, if you're caring for aging parents or you have
Yes.
3 young kids at home under 5, like obviously your strategy is going to be different from
Yeah.
someone, like myself, say, who, does not have those things at this time. You have to kind of look at where you are also. It's not always the right time to do certain things and, what season of life are you in? And yes, there's a lot of variables, I think, that, we think like, oh, we should do X. Well, there's a little bit more to it. So yeah, let's dig in a little bit there and make sure that that's really what you want to do and, really the way to go forward right now.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, I do want to ask
Sure.
about the one that you have up now. Have you done any kind of like parity pricing? So kind of like pay what you can afford sort of
Mhm.
thing, like or any messaging around that where kind of acknowledging that, if you maybe live in a certain place or you are able to pay more, the suggested might be this versus something else. I've run into some business owners who have done that and I always find it very interesting. especially what people choose. So have you done anything like that, or you just kind of want to keep it low, just kind of across the board?
Yeah, how my business operates, like I'll just put it all out there and very transparently is, I work with a handful of clients at a time, and largely I'm doing done for you work.
Mhm.
I have some coaching clients, but typically like how I'm paying the bills is through fewer higher cost
Mhm.
engagements.
Right.
So I just want to be very clear about that. Like selling these planning guides, that's not how
Yes.
I make
Mhm.
a majority of my income. So, but yes, like I hadn't heard the term parity pricing yet. So thanks for that new term. But yes, I love that. And so I've seen clients and supported them in finding new ways to do so. For me, it felt important just to have a singular price point for this, but I do have an offering that's called a shift session, and it's a 60-minute session with me, and it is pay what you're able.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, and so that way, again, that kind of barrier to entry, I don't want, you know, a high like price point to be
Mhm.
the barrier for somebody who's just starting out to be able to get some support. And
Right.
I know how valuable that's been for me just to have someone mirror and reflect and ask questions to help me get to that
Yes.
point of clarity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I intentionally chose not to do any sort of sliding scale for this particular offering, but that's also because I have the shift sessions,
Mhm.
which are pay what you're able. And then I also have virtual office hours, which are
Mhm.
30-minute chats totally free.
Oh,
So
nice.
I've
Mhm.
had virtual office hours for years, and it's been awesome. So both of those kind of feel like they're not going
Mhm.
anywhere. They're always going to
Yeah.
be there, and it's another way I hope to live into that value of wanting to be available and accessible to folks that need that financial
Mhm.
flexibility.
Right, right. Yeah, that makes sense. And it just made me think of something where I think, like, as a service provider, you've been doing this for a long time and you like it. My kind of like intended audience is or people who are kind of at that point where they're ready to take another step,
Mm,
and it's not hire a big team, right? Having a virtual assistant or having a small number of subcontractors or freelancers who work with you, or even real team members, W-2 employees or whatever, I think is fine. But my intended audience is not like people who have 20 or more, team members.
yeah,
So that being said, that next step or a step in creating these digital products isn't necessarily to replace this service income. It's not necessarily to
right.
stop providing the service. I feel like I should probably do a solo episode about this specifically. Like, you can have other offerings for many reasons. Just adding a product allows you to reach more people and can kind of give you that pride of creating something of your own to share. We're so busy kind
Mm,
of working on other people's businesses sometimes as a service provider that, we don't actually create something of our own to share with others. So I just think that those things, money aside, can provide a lot of room for growth and
yes.
experimentation and kind of like, some life back into another leg of your journey. And yeah, maybe it leads to more products and maybe it leads to full-time products, but really I'm thinking not. Like, I think, as a service provider, you probably love it and maybe you just want to stick with it, but just have
Yeah.
some other things, like your eggs are in different baskets, I guess.
Yeah. And honestly, how I like to look at it is, so my customer journey
Hmm.
could be many years.
Hmm.
And so this was probably 3 or so years ago, but I had a client reach out, and it's because they had attended a free workshop that I gave like 2 or 3 years prior.
Nice.
So, that's kind of my intention in thinking about the content that I'm creating. And then also with this solo business retreat planning guide is okay, if someone can benefit from this now where they are in their business at whatever point that might be, my intention is that it is valuable enough to them that perhaps when they are in a space a year from now, 2 years from now,
Yes.
whenever it might be, that I just am someone that they might flash on as a
Mhm.
potential to reach out to answer that question that they might have. So just being considered, right?
Yes.
Mm. And coincidentally, even today, which it's wild, but there's somebody that I have had several of these shift sessions with over the past 2 years. And we finally signed a proposal and we're going to work together on a longer project. But again,
Nice.
that's like, it's a
Mhm.
really long time frame. So I think that perhaps even for your audience being, in that service based industry, just thinking too about how could digital products support your customers on
Mhm.
their journey to become a full package client?
Yes. Yeah, I love that you say that too. I was kind of thinking that in the back of my mind, and I thought, like, no, I'm not going to mention that. But I think so. I have an episode about like the three types of audiences that you can sell to, probably like the three easiest types, initially to sell to your peers, because you've been doing this a long time. You probably
Mm,
have some knowledge. People who can't yet afford you. So maybe the DIY crowd, which I'll come back to. And then people who are just about ready to work with you. They can't afford you. They just need a little bit more to prepare, right? So you give them
mhm.
something to do, some kind of product where, for example, like a website, a package that helps them create their content. They purchase,
Yeah.
they go, they come back to you, they're ready, and they're ready to work with you on your one-on-one service. But that DIY crowd, I think, gets a bad rap because I think some service providers think that they are more difficult clients.
Mm,
And I've kind of always been of the thought that they could also just be people who are just starting, who are just not quite ready yet. And yes, not every single person is going to turn into a client later for
mhm,
you, but
mhm.
yeah, they could. They're early on in their journey. They purchase your guide or, whatever it is you have. You stay in touch with them. Maybe they're on your email list and you email them once a month or once a quarter or however often, and as they grow, they're consuming your content. And then, yeah, they're ready to work
Yeah.
with you at some point. So I think that's a really, viable crowd and a great crowd to work with. It's not for everybody, and that's totally fine. I'm not saying like you should or shouldn't, but I think there's value in that group.
Yeah, I agree. And, I think that there's there's something to be said about also for me at least, it was super helpful to allow this product, this current planning guide to release the pressure around it being this cash cow. you
Yes.
know? So
Yes.
it's something that I really felt called, like doing these quarterly business retreats is something that I personally do. It's something that I've talked a lot about, that people have asked me about. And so it felt like there was a lot of, I keep talking about energy, but it's what I try to tap into a lot to help point me in the direction. And so it just
Mhm.
felt like there was a lot of energy around this idea. And so it was like I followed that
Mhm.
inspiration. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, and sales kind of trickle in, but also I'm not doing this like really concerted like
Mhm.
marketing effort around it. I just kind of mention it here, share it
Mhm.
there, and it's organically
Mhm.
like people are organically finding it. And for me, that's perfect. But
Mhm.
um that was also the intention that I set for it. Was like, I really want to create this. I'm just gonna put it out there.
Right, and I'm sure sales are fun. Even at a low price point, I'm sure that when you get an email that there was a sale that you,
Yeah.
like, feel, like, good that this could really help someone and, now they're kind of in your orbit and maybe consuming
Yes.
your emails or other content, and you can help them further, like, I dig it. I think it's good. So why don't you tell us a little bit about it specifically? So it's a solo business retreat planning guide. So
Yeah.
tell us, what is a solo business retreat? Like, I need one of these.
Yeah. Like, goodness, it's a mouthful too, right? Saying that out loud.
I had
Like,
to read it from the thing.
probably should have thought of
Right there.
that. Um, yeah. So what I was realizing, and this has been a few years now, is that, I think that we get so busy working on client work and kind of in the business that we don't often take time to work on our own businesses. And so for me, it felt like doing something monthly felt like it was too, like not enough really
Mhm.
happens in a month. And I felt like I was, not really dedicating time to it because I was like, oh, I'll just do it next month. And then it would be like 6 months and I hadn't done anything.
Mhm.
So for me, it's like the quarterly time period feels really good. And so what I do is I like to think about what are the things that in any given day, maybe I have that like genius shower thought and I kind of like put it somewhere and then I don't do anything with it. The quarterly retreats are when I go back through like all of my shower
Oh,
thoughts.
nice. Mhm.
And then, and I think of them as like back burner projects.
Mhm.
And it's a way for me to dedicate time to say, like, okay, here are all the things that came up over the past 3 months. Which of these still feel relevant? Which one
Mhm.
am I feeling drawn to? Whatever it might be. Which one is feeling like it might bring more ease to the way I'm working? Or
Mm.
which one might feel like it is headed in the direction that I want to take my business? So, and then I dedicate time to work on that thing. I have a whole blog post that like goes with this offering, so we can share that too in the show
Yeah.
notes.
Great.
But I also talk about the Eisenhower matrix. Are you
Yeah.
familiar with this? Okay.
Yeah, but tell the audience because I like it.
Yeah. So it's a 2 by 2 quadrant. And so the idea is that you look at things on one axis, it's urgency, and on the other axis, it's importance. And so then I use that as like a starting point for all of my retreats, just to map out kind of like brain dump everything that is on my brain and going on in my business. And so you know, you look at the things that are not important, not urgent, and those are the ones that either I can release or delegate
Mhm.
somehow. But for the focus of the retreat, I really want to look at the ones that are important but not urgent.
Mhm.
Because the important and urgent things are typically the ones that are drawing your attention, that client work, that
Yes.
deadline focused work. That's kind of where we tend to spend a lot of our time. And then also they're the things like the not important but urgent that also draw our
Mhm.
attention. So that's kind of the things that, oh, I spent 3 hours doing this thing that, my
Makes
like
no
website went
difference.
down or whatever. So anyway, I find that like those back burner projects are the ones that are important but not urgent. So
Mhm.
it's the things that we know can move the needle in some real regard for our business, but we want, at least for me, I want to have kind of uninterrupted blank space so that I can get in
Mhm.
that flow state to really find time to work on that thing.
Mhm.
And that's what my retreats are for. Very practically, it's like I do my bookkeeping once a
Mm.
quarter on my retreats. So
Mhm.
that's the
Nice.
way I just get them done during that time too. So there's like a practical element to it as well.
Mhm.
Not, I mean, working on the business is practical, but sometimes it feels a little dreamy. Sometimes it's more like, vision boarding or brainstorming
Yes.
or
Yeah.
whatever.
For
So,
sure, yeah. I love how you say letting go of some of those things too, because I take a lot of notes, every week I see this or see that. Yeah. And being able to go back through those and just look at them again and say, like, okay, this is not, I'm just not going to do this. I don't have to
yeah,
think about it anymore. I'm just going to say
yeah.
no, cross it off, move it to the do not do list. Like, I
Mhm.
like that because I think it feels good. Because I think we have a lot of things that kind of weigh on us over time. We should do this, we should do this, we should do this. Just saying, like, no, I'm not going to focus on that. And I think looking quarterly is good too, because then, things that maybe were important in the first quarter or in the first month of that quarter, and you come back at, month three and you're like, thinking about it now or thinking about it longer, it's no longer, necessary. I don't need to do that. I
Mhm.
don't want to do that anymore. So instead of just jumping on every project, every time you think of something new, being a little bit more
Yeah.
strategic about it.
Well, and I mean, so case in point, so this year, my goal was to write a piece of content quarterly that would have some sort of low cost offering attached. And
Mhm.
so this solo business like planning guide, this retreat guide was the first one. And so I
Nice.
was planning to do another one for Q2 and I wanted it to be around how to translate business systems into rituals and kind of a lot of what we're talking about here too of how can we change our shoulds into just like really question what we feel are these obligations in our
Mhm.
business and so coincidentally, that post came out today. The blog post came out today.
Oh,
But
sweet.
as I was trying to sit with it, it's like, and there's I was able to put another little companion thing together for it, but it didn't feel robust enough for me to charge for it.
Mhm.
And then I was like, well, what else can I create that felt worthy to put a price tag on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't get there. And then it's like, well, I didn't want to hold up this piece of content for me to create this other thing. And so eventually I was like, well, my intention was to, have one offering a quarter with anyway. And I finally let that go. And it's like, okay, this is ready. Like, I think this is complete as is. And just because this one doesn't have this low cost offering to go with it, doesn't mean that it's any less valuable. So
Right.
that's how things have changed for me too. Like, I'm not counting that as a failure because I didn't complete that. And my timeline has shifted too, just because of life. So
Right,
I have to
exactly.
honor that as well.
Yeah, there's still wins, right? And I think if we're so strict in exactly what we intend to do, if we don't do it exactly right, like I think we feel like failures. But if you kind of open up the definition a little bit more,
Sure.
you can see that you still created something. It's still valuable. You still did it. Maybe it was a little bit later. Maybe it didn't look like what you thought it was going to. That's okay. Like those things are, those don't matter. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
One other question about the solo business retreat. The word retreat sounds very sexy. Like, are you just doing this at home? Are you going somewhere? Does it matter?
I've done all of the above.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think it depends. Again, this is like where you are in life, where you are in business, what you feel like you have the space for. So, I have done them where it's like a little mini staycation. So, for some reason, I don't know why, but I feel really inspired when I am in tiny homes. So I try to find like just a tiny home in my city or somewhere, nearby, quick drive. And so I've done that a few times and I'll stay a couple nights and that feels super luxurious. But then also lately, I don't really have the time to
Mhm.
do that. My personal life circumstances have shifted. And so I don't quite have that time anymore. And so what retreats look like for me, the one that I did for Q2, I blocked 2 mornings on consecutive days. And so I just made sure that I had, the soundtrack that I wanted and I
Mhm.
had my essential oil diffuser going
Mhm.
and, I had my favorite clothes on and
Mhm.
I had my notebook and so I was able to create the environment of this is different from my normal
Mhm.
work day. And likely I've got my next one in a couple weeks and it's probably going to look pretty similar.
Mhm.
I also have this one timed where I'll have a session with one of the healers that I work with and really love. And so that's going to be my like first thing that I do. I'll, I love going to yoga. It's still really hot here in Texas. So
Mhm.
normally I try to get outside and do a walk or something, but
Mhm.
that just doesn't feel enjoyable right now. But I might go swimming instead. So it's like, how can I create these or find the components that make it feel special, even
Yeah.
if it is just 3 hours, four
Mhm.
hours?
Yeah, that makes sense. I love that. Have you ever heard of the Getaway House?
No.
They're tiny cabins and they're throughout the US. And we've stayed in them a couple times. And I love them because it's camping, but it's like you don't have to take anything. There's like a warm
Yeah.
bed and a warm shower, and they have like all of the things that you'd want to do over the fire, like right outside, and there's a picnic table already there. And I don't know, I like them very much. They're very nice.
Getaway. Okay. I'm making
Yeah,
this note for
it's
myself.
getaway.house.
Perfect.
Yeah, they're kind of all over the US. I'm not sure, how close to you, but yeah, I've found that it's really just nice to be able to kind of get out into nature without
Yes.
all of the hacking and schlepping and stuff. You can
Yeah.
kind of just take a couple things. They even have packages inside the house that you can buy. They all have like olive oil and all the utensils that you would need to kind of make something if you did take some food with you. But yeah, little refrigerator.
Oh, I
It's
love
nice.
that.
Yeah, super cute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and I think it's interesting, but when I was in a previous relationship and in a previous home space that didn't feel super supportive, it was like it felt imperative for me to be in a brand new
Mhm.
space. Like I needed to physically get out of where I was. So now I feel like I can still tap into inspiration and I feel a lot safer in my physical space.
Mhm.
My nervous system still feels very calm here. So I think it's possible for me to tap into that head and heart space while still
Mhm.
being physically in the same space that I am day to day. But yeah, for sure. There were times when that was not possible. And so getting away felt more imperative.
Mhm.
But I'm going to check out this getaway house
Yeah.
just
Sometimes
for
too, just to
fun.
mix it up because every quarter something different is happening. So,
Yeah.
where it feels like I'd really like to get away or I'm fine staying in or I'm not able to go out now or whatever
Hmm.
it is, taking into
Hmm.
consideration your circumstances, I suppose. So,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, cool. So, anything else you want to say about the product? So, I assume that product didn't take you a ton of time to put together. It was something you already were doing that you thought would be helpful? Any kind of like mental blocks or any support you needed? Or you were like, I'm going to do this and I did it. And I kept the scope small so that I could do it. And I just put it out there. Any thoughts, I guess, about the creation and launch?
For the retreat guide, it definitely felt a little easier. I mean, I work with an online business manager who helps me a ton. And so, I had all the ideas and wrote it in a Google Doc, and then she was able to get started. So the actual guide is a Notion dashboard.
Okay.
So it's a template that you duplicate in Notion and then you
Mhm.
can make it your own. And so then she was able to work her magic to design it within Notion
Hmm.
in a way that felt really good. And we tweaked things and collaborated on that. So, yeah, I mean, it didn't take that long. And the launch of it, really was just announcing to my newsletter list. And then what I always tend to do, and this is an idea from the Being Boss podcast from way back in the day, is sending to your wolf pack.
Okay.
Have you heard this?
Mm-mm.
So, it's the idea of like when you are launching anything that sometimes we think so broad that it's like, oh, we've got to shout it from the mountaintops and make sure we get all net new people and new eyeballs on it. And what they recommended, which I really has proven true for me, is but we neglect to tell the people who are closest to us, who
Hmm.
are our fiercest allies,
Mhm.
who want to do everything that they can to support us.
Our super
And so,
fans.
yes, yes, yes.
Mhm.
And so, but really, it's those super fans that are friends and family or collaborators, partners.
Mhm.
And so, really, when I launch anything, I always make sure that, and I did it with the retreat guide, that I'm sending it to my wolf pack. So it's these
Mhm.
people who might also have the capacity to share with their audiences in some capacity. So I will typically put together some swipe copy
Hmm.
and some shareable graphics and then that way, if they feel so called, then they can share in their newsletter or on social or wherever feels good. And then I always have that, or when I share my own ask to my wolf
Mhm.
pack, it's like I always make sure that I share that I'm here and would love to reciprocate.
Oh,
And
nice.
so
Mhm.
then when they have something,
Mhm.
then I make sure that I share it. So
Yeah.
that was really all I did.
Mhm. Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, that's excellent. And I think that those people too, yeah, like you mentioned, they're eager to help you. They want to consume everything that you have. It's like the people that sign up for all your newsletters and read all your blog posts and listen to all your podcast episodes. So those are
Yeah,
great people to have in our corner.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it would even be more like collaborators, though, like even
Mhm.
friends or like fellow business owners. So yes, it could be the super fans, but I think for me, it's even like the friends, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, awesome. Yeah,
And
very
so
cool. So, do you have some advice for us? So, for people who have not created anything, so no courses, no templates, no guides, nothing, but they are thinking that this is something that they may want to do you have some advice on what maybe you're glad that you did or what you wish you would have done differently or, anything really?
I do think you touched on it with the different audiences, but I think that it can be really helpful to when you're considering creating something as you're going about your work, um, to come to it with a curiosity of where might there be aspects of what I'm doing or how I'm working and how could I help support my clients in this process. So it's that I think of them as like the half step things. So if I were to offer this to my clients, how could they be one like a little bit closer to being prepared to actually work with me?
Okay, yeah.
So you can think about like what are those points in your process? So that can be something. I mean, I would also say give yourself more time than you
Mm.
think you need.
Yes. Right. Things come up. things that
Oh
you
my
don't know,
goodness.
things come up related to it and, outside of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, because I think that the actual creation part can sometimes go fairly smoothly. But what I've seen over and over is that there is often a challenge when it comes time to actually sharing it. So it
Mhm,
seems like a lot of folks will have it already. And then there are a lot of mental blocks
mhm.
around the visibility of being seen and actually
Yes.
putting it out
Yes.
there.
Yeah, whispering from the rooftops like, "Hey," and you're
Yes.
like, "What?" And then, like, the one time it's a different sort of marketing than with your services, like, it's a different
Yes.
way of sharing. So, yes, I've seen that too, yeah.
Yeah. So, I think it's time. I think it's also giving yourself time for that and also extending yourself a lot of grace because if you haven't done this in quite this way before, yeah, it is new and fresh. And, I think like even case in point with me where I was trying so hard to really like force this other thing with this
Mhm,
blog post that just recently went out. And then finally, it's like I had to allow that to go
mhm,
away.
right.
So I think that also a piece of advice is just allowing yourself to have regular points of checking in with
Mhm,
yourself in the process, just to touch back with, does this feel aligned? Is this becoming some sort of should or
mm,
obligation? Where can I invite in more ease into the process and allow yourself to morph the original idea, like
mhm.
allow it to evolve
Yes.
with you and your current energetic capacity and your current life circumstances. I think that that's really important to not be beholden to
Mhm,
a rigid structure or timeline just because it's what you created at the
mhm.
onset.
If you get feedback along the way from anybody that you may have reached out to, like, yeah, making a change just because, like, you think the product should be a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that that's, like, what the audience needs. So if
Yeah.
you do seek that feedback out, being willing to change course or change direction slightly to accommodate, because really, like,
Hmm.
if the goal is to help people, sometimes getting that feedback is good. And I'm a fan of a timeline. Just because I think that a lot of times we just keep pushing this off. It is important but not urgent. So I'm a
Yeah.
fan of a timeline, but yeah, not to the detriment of like your sanity or your
Yeah.
life. So kind of like a guideline of I would like to have it done by X date, but allowing yourself some wiggle room in there to like just I guess maybe the point being like don't just keep putting it off forever. It will feel good to get it done. Like you'll feel
Sure.
good afterwards. So
Sure. Yeah, and I think to whatever extent it allows, having accountability can be really
mhm,
helpful too. So, whether that is just having a peer that's supporting you on the journey, checking in, or if it's having someone that's actually supporting you in creating a component of
mhm.
the content or getting it out there can be super helpful too.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, totally agree. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Can you tell us where we can find you online?
Yes, you can find me on my website, which is just my name, maggiegentry.com. I'm not on social media anymore, so
Mhm.
that's the best place to find me. And I do send quarterly newsletters if you're getting a theme. I love to do thing by
Yes.
do things by the quarter. So yeah, that's all there, but I can also share links to the virtual office hours too for the
Oh,
show
cool.
notes if anybody wants
Mhm.
to book in a chat. That's always
Yeah.
available.
Awesome. Perfect. I will add all of those links in there and a link to your new blog post as well.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much. It was really a delight.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'd love to continue the conversation in your inbox. Email subscribe to hey@yfdp.show or sign up in the show notes to get bi-monthly emails about how you can create, launch, and market your first digital product. Can't wait to see you there.